I got here is 2x6, just ordinary framing lumber. I'm going to cut it down to 16 pieces that are 2 1/4 inches wide, 7/8 of an inch thick, and 14 inches long. That's the finished dimensions. I start by ripping them. Let's split it right down the middle. To 2 3/8. That will give me some space for planing and whatnot, and rip off the other edge. So one of the keys to making it, cutting the wood so that it doesn't go all wonky, is trying to remove equal sections, equal amounts off both sides. The problem with that, what I just did, is I had to cut it in the middle. Now, fortunately, this being flat like this and sitting out here for a while, it's probably the same moisture content, pretty close to here as it would be over here, say a 1/2 inch from the edge. So that's not going to affect it too much. But here on this way, you should really try to take 2 sides off. What I mean by that is if you need an inch left over, take a 1/4 inch off each side. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run it through the saw and take a 1/4 inch off one side, then flip it around and take a 1/4 inch off the other. It takes a little bit longer, but what you wind up with is a straighter piece in the end because it's got even moisture content. So I'll set the saw to about 1 1/4, lock it in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut halfway through one side, one edge, and then flip it over and cut through the other side. That's quite a bit safer because, well, A, you don't have as much blade sticking out, and B, you're only cutting through this much material as opposed to the whole thing. And another thing is, if it starts to move, if it starts to twist or warp halfway through the cut, the top part will kind of restrain it. It's not free to move as much. A bit of a crease in the middle here, but we're going to plane that out anyway. Now that's pretty straight. What I'm doing is I'm holding the work up against the fence, but I'm mainly holding it down against the table on this cut edge that I just did. So that when you're pushing it through, you're making a 90-degree cut here. This is 90 degrees. And then when I flip it around, I'll do the same thing, except it should be flat against the fence anyway. So, question for some of you might be, why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I cutting all this smaller stuff out of 2x6? And the answer is that any day of the week you can go to your local lumber store and pick up wood of this quality in 2x6. All you gotta do is look for it. This is nice, clear, straight grain wood with no defects. And you're going to pay a premium for that in any other type of wood, pine, anything. And pine is no harder than this wood for the most part. And this is easier to use. It doesn't have a lot of resin. It doesn't gum up your blade. It doesn't gum up your planer knives. What I do is I spend $10 and I get a couple of pieces of 2x6. I let them dry out real good, and then I cut them down into what I need. Here I need pieces that are a finished thickness after planing of 7/8 of an inch thick, and you just simply can't buy that. You have to cut it down anyway, so may as well cut it down out of economical material. Alright, I'm getting ready to plane these down to the final thickness. It's going to take 2 or 3 passes on each side to get it down. One thing you want to do is maintain the if you're planing so much off this side, plane it off the other side also. To avoid snipe, I got a little bit extra on the ends of these to waste, but for the most part I don't want any snipe on these at all. So to avoid the snipe, I got my piece of scrap. That's the same thickness to run ahead and run behind, and then I'll feed these continuously through. Okay, that's the first pass, and I took a little bit off. It still needs a little bit more taken off. Like I said, I'm going to wind up with a 7/8 of an inch thick surface. But the first pass pretty much flattens it and makes it parallel to the other side. Right now, all these pieces look pretty flat and straight, so I don't think I'm going to have a problem with them. Okay, I finished planing all the parts. I'm laying down like this and push them again together. They all look pretty nice and flat and straight. Certainly flat and straight enough for what I need. Another good way of testing to see how much snipe you're getting rid of by using the scrap piece is to, when you've done a bunch like this, is to take an overall measurement. Here I'm going to measure across, and I mean, I was cutting them to 7/8, so there's 8 pieces. That means that this should be 7 inches. So, and it is exactly 7 inches. And then when you measure the ends, pressing those together, I have exactly 7 inches again, and 7 inches here. So you can see that this method is really effective for getting rid of snipe completely. So the next step is to cut these in half. Like I said before, the length needs to be 14 inches. What I'm going to do is cut them in half and cut them all to a uniform 14 inches long. And then I'm going to actually run them through the saw again and bring them down to the final dimension of 2 1/4. Right now they're 2 3/8. So that'll straighten the edge even more, and that'll be straight enough for what I need. The edge of these really doesn't need to be plain flat. They're not getting glued to anything, so what's getting glued together are pieces like this. So that's what I'll do next. All right. It's a good thing about my, it's got that garbage bin. Throw the straps into it. Okay, now that I've got all my pieces cut to length, I just need to finish cutting them to width. These are going to be 2 1/4 width. What I have now is I have 2 completely flat parallel sides. These edges are still maybe a little bit wonky, so I'm going to check my blade, make sure it's at 90 degrees. And cut one edge, a little bit off one edge, flip flip it around and cut the other edge to the final dimension. So it's 2 cuts. My blade looks good. Just wheel that down and set my saw to 2 5/16. That will just take a little bit off, and then I can cut through all these. Now I got one very straight edge and very square, so it's certainly square enough for what I want to do. I'll reset my fence. Let's go ahead and cut these.